Okay, so today I want to talk about Bo Pelini and LSU, Nebraska, Youngstown State, and all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. And today we got to talk about Bo Pelini, who is a figure, right? I kind of enjoy Bo. I also enjoy the conversation around Bo even more. And the reason that I'm talking about this right now is because Ross Dellinger wrote a really good piece for Sports Illustrated about Bo Pelini and his return to LSU after some years away. And one of the pieces that I took away from this piece was a former assistant and player for Pelini at Youngstown State and Nebraska who said the 2007 LSU roster isn't as good as the one that he has right now at LSU. For which I'm going, all right, that might be true. I don't know that it's going to be true in 2020, but that might be true. And it also gets to this point where how does Bo Pelini end up getting ousted from Nebraska to Youngstown State? Because when you look at some of the other coaches that had head coaching jobs and how they finished at their respective schools, he kind of stands out, right? This is a really interesting graph. So Bo Pelini goes 66-27 at Nebraska. That's a 71% winning percentage and did not have a losing season at Nebraska. And to add insult to injury there, since they fired him, they have lost more games than they have won. 28-34 in the post-Pelini era in Nebraska. But then you look at some of these other coaches' names you know, and he finishes ahead of all of them. Mark Helfrich at Oregon. They were pretty good. Goes 37-16. Still not as good as Bo Pelini when he was at Nebraska. Bobby Petrino at Louisville, Western Kentucky, and Arkansas goes 119-56. Still not as good as Pelini from a winning percentage standpoint, 68 to his 70.9. Brett Bielema at Wisconsin and Arkansas, 62.5%. Butch Jones at Central Michigan, Cincinnati, and Tennessee, 84-54. Rich Rodriguez, West Virginia, Michigan, and Arizona, 118-83. That's a 58.7% winning percentage. Charlie Strong at Louisville, Texas, and South Florida only gets to 58.7. Steve Sarkisian, Alabama offensive coordinator, Steve Sarkisian, 56% at Washington and USC, right? Jim Mora at UCLA, 56.5%. Larry Fedora at Southern Miss in North Carolina, 56%. And then Pete Limbo at Ball State, 53%. And this is over the last decade, right? So what happened? Well, Deadspin happened. And more to the point, in a piece of audio that got leaked to Deadspin where Bo Pelini is disparaging Nebraska fans who were very upset with him because making bowl games ain't what it is at Nebraska. Winning titles is what it is at Nebraska. They wanted conference championships. They wanted national championships. They didn't care that they made a bowl in each and every year or that Ndamukong Suh was one of the most dominant college football players of all time. And Mark Ingram needs to hand his Heisman Trophy to that player who single-handedly destroyed a Texas team that ends up playing in a national championship game against Alabama, gets destroyed just in the next game that they played, quite honestly. And I've always kind of been in on Nebraska because Nebraska and Oklahoma, game of the century. I have an affinity for Nebraska. I have an affinity for college football, as you very well can see from all of this, right? While also very clearly showing my fandom with Oklahoma. Matter of fact, this is a Dennis Rodman jersey from southeastern Oklahoma State in Durant, okay? Back when you could actually still say and call it the Savages. Now they're not. It's like, I think they're like the Savage Storm or something, or maybe it's just a Storm. Anyway, it was a different kind of America when Dennis Rodman was playing power forward down there in Durant. But I found it interesting that Tom Osborne had some things to say, saying, I'm not going to defend Bo Pelini disparaging our fan base. I am going to say that there are folks that thought that that audio should have some merit and others who were like, it shouldn't even factor in. So when Bo Pelini gets fired and goes to Youngstown State, turns them into a power, I mean, he's taking on the North Dakota States of the world. Nothing really changed for Bo Pelini, the coach, because Bo Pelini, the coach, is actually pretty damn good at his job, right? It's Bo Pelini, the fundraiser. Bo Pelini, the handshaker. That ain't necessarily that dude, right? Need a little bit of polish and just wanted to coach ball in the first place. Didn't really want to talk to anybody about coaching ball, and, you know, that's what he does. Meanwhile, Ed Orgeron had that moniker, and Ed Orgeron has had one of the great turns from heel to face that we have ever seen in college football. Like, find me somebody that doesn't like Coach O now. when he was at Ole Miss and threatened to take off his shirt and fight people, might not have been anybody's favorite at the time. Ole Miss wasn't any good either. And Ed Orgeron's also coming off a 15-0 season national championship where he thumped a team that won the Orange Bowl. He thumped another team that beat Alabama. He beat Alabama. And then he thumped a very good Oklahoma team and destroyed the best Clemson team we'd seen, maybe. I mean, 2018 obviously won a national championship game, but goodness me, that was a really good Clemson team, right? And I find it interesting that Bo Pelini is in this position again, where the last time he was coordinated defense, of course, they won a national championship, but that was also 13 years ago, right? It's a different kind of football. I don't want to throw Bo Pelini into this bucket of Mike Stoops stuff because he ain't Mike Stoops, and I want to be very clear about that. But the last time we saw a football coach take a head coaching job, then return to coordinator where I was from, right, Oklahoma, and go somewhere. It didn't go somewhere in so much a way that it was like Mike Stoops forgot that defenses and offenses had changed in the decade he was away. Like, he took the job at Arizona in 2003, and then, comes back in 12 and doesn't know 6 ways from Sunday and gets his clock cleaned and goes from his 4-3 defense, which is out of date and doesn't work, to something that leads to Julian Wilson, a cornerback turned nickel safety, into plain middle linebacker in a dime package. It wasn't any good. And you had Tony Jefferson responsible for like 3 gaps on one play. It's just a bad look. I don't think that's going to happen to Bo Pelini. I do know that Ed Orgeron brought him in to bring in the 4-3 defense after a really great 3-4 defensive scheme that Aranda was putting out there that was working. So perhaps he's not just hiring the scheme, he's hiring the coach, because I think you want the coach to coach the scheme he's most comfortable with. And it also brings in question this question about, is it the scheme or is it the coach? It's got to be the coach, but the coach has to be able to adjust his scheme. I'm interested, right? Because what Marcel Brooks does in this defense is going to tell me a lot. What Jacoby Stevens is allowed to do in this defense is going to tell me a lot, right? Whether or not Derek Stingley Jr. is allowed to roam from one side of the field to the other and actually play against the other team's best wide receiver the whole time or just have a side is going to tell me a lot, right? I think that right now, Nebraska fans would love to have them some Bo Pelini style of success. But it's an interesting question as to whether or not Bo Pelini would be more beloved than Scott Frost. Because right now, I'm here to tell you, people love Scott Frost. Even when it ain't going so well right now, they love Scott Frost. And it's hard not to like Scott Frost. But I wonder how long they're going to be able to put up with this kind of losing if Scott Frost doesn't get it right. Because it's not just, Scott Frost. It's been Mike Riley. Bill Callahan wasn't that great either. All I'm saying here is that if Bo Pelini had more polish, I could see him being a head coach, in the FBS this year as opposed to somebody's coordinator. That said, let LSU run the table, which I don't think they will, but let them do it. He'll be a head coach somewhere else, and it'll once again be about, can the athletic director polish him a little bit or at least keep him away from microphone long enough not to screw this up with donors and fans? Because that's what happened with him at Nebraska, right? You could see it wasn't the results. It was how people felt about the results. And what we know about this America is that facts don't matter. Feelings matter. Nobody cares about your facts. They only care about how they feel about what you had to say, right? Doesn't matter if you're stupid. Doesn't matter if you're smart. It matters if people like you. Here's hoping that it goes well and people like Bo Pelini in Baton Rouge. All right, that's it for me. Doses.